Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Again, I'm Pasi from Kingston Technology. I'm the Technical Resources Team Leader. And I'm here to talk about two things that are very much associated these days, which is GDPR, the EU-GDPR regulation, a little bit about that. And also how our encrypted USB drives can be associated to GDPR use, or how to try to meet the requirements and the recommendations in the GDPR rule and the law. So for those of you in the audience who don't know Kingston Technology, we've been around for 30 years, still privately owned. We're financially secure. You have the two owners there on the left side. That's David's son and John too. And a lot of employees worldwide. We've got employees across Europe. We have our European headquarters in London, 300 plus employees there, where I'm also based in. And we have still manufacturing testing. We're one of the best manufacturers of NAND-based products or DRAM-based products with our patented burn-in testing that we're doing. So we do believe after 30 years, we still are maintaining the high quality of our products. So hopefully, if you guys are our customers, you've also seen the same thing with the higher quality that we have. We're focusing on memory modules. Obviously, the trend on memory use and the memory technology have changed over the years. We're still there. We're strong on flash products, and we're still doing a lot of tech solutions. And we're also, these days, we're doing embedded products. So if you have a cell phone, you have a tablet, you have an IoT device, Internet of Things device, you might actually have a Kingston product in there without knowing. We deliver a staggering over 1 million units per day, so we have a large production and a large amount of products shipping across the world that are used every day by many of our customers, distributed in 125 countries, including here in Hungary, and available in over 30,000 locations. So we're huge. We're still strong, even in the way the technology trends are going. And today, it's not about everything we do. It's mostly about GDPR, like I said, and encrypted USB drives. So let's get on. So I'm sure most of you guys know GDPR has been in the works since 2016. It is a result of the EU data protection reform process that started back in 2012. So this process, this regulation should already be familiar with most of us, most of you guys. It'll affect EU customers, EU businesses, and also obviously customers and businesses across the world that are dealing with EU customers. Let's say it's a customer registry from a Hungarian customer. If it's an American company, they need to also be careful how the data is processed. And the whole idea is we unify the protection of the employee or the customer, the citizen data. So across all the countries taking the EU GDPR regulation in effect, and that's 25th of May 2018 when it's finally active, you need to be able to comply to it. You have to go by the regulation, and obviously there are penalties in place if you don't comply with GDPR. So for many of us, including Kingston, by the way, our office in London is currently going through the same thing as many of you guys have to go at some point, which is you have to have a consultation, you have a consultant that knows about GDPR regulation, and they give you advice. What is the best thing you can do, how to change your process if there's something wrong with it. If it is as simple as you're bringing customer data or employee data from building A to office B somewhere else, what is the process you're following with that data transfer? Is it secure enough? What could happen if that transport of that data is compromised, which means, let's say you have a DVD, and you take a train and you lose your DVD that has an employee data or customer data. That's not a good thing. So our encrypted drives tie in very well into that philosophy of transferring data from one point to the other with protection. Okay, so some key points. I'm not going to go too much over the GDPR because I have a lot of slides about our products. So the organization should use state-of-the-art, risk-based security to protect personal data. That's in Article 32. There's a lot of pages and pages of GDPR documentation, and I'm sure the legal departments, the upcoming data protection officers will be busy reviewing this material over and over again. Data breaches must be reported within 72 hours to an EU supervisory authority. That means that if there's a data breach, you have to be ready to react immediately. And one of the benefits of using, obviously I have to bring a link to Kingston products. One of the benefits of using an encrypted drive during a breach is it's no longer a data breach. It is now considered a security breach. So again, if you have a DVD full of confidential employee or customer data and you lose it and it has no protection whatsoever of encryption or password, that is a data breach. But if that same data existed on a Kingston drive, any one of our encrypted drives that have a password protected partition, that would only be considered a security breach. So that's much better. Potential fines are up to 20 million euros or 4% of the worldwide annual turnover. I think everybody knows this. It is one of those highlight messages of the dangers of not following GDPR philosophy or the regulations. So keep that in mind. We're watching very closely to see what the effects are after 25th of May next year in terms of how customers are affected by this. But I suspect the process of getting to be GDPR compliant, to be aware of GDPR, is going to be very long for most of us, including Kingston as well in London. So we can give you an example of what happens if you have a choice between an encrypted drive or a standard. We also make standard regular USB drives with no encryption, of course. So the difference between transferring data on a standard drive versus encrypted drive. So the potential damage for losing that unencrypted USB drive, and you could replace that USB drive in this slide as a DVD, or you have a hard drive, external, USB 3.0 hard drive and so forth, the damage is substantial. So that obviously means what kind of data do you have on that product when it's lost, when it's stolen, when there's a data breach. So it could be tax numbers, salaries, hospital records, patient records, military records, government records, all kinds of things like that. So the cost of the loss gets higher as it is more sensitive and more IP type of data that the customer has. Likelihood of occurrence can be determined through studies. So obviously here you must have authorities that are familiar with data breaches here in Hungary, of data loss. Typically on the news you might read articles about how in the US you had a data breach with PlayStation Network, player data was gone, you have employee records that are gone. Easy way to breach into web-based services if you take advantage of the holes that the customer might not have in their environments. And everybody knows how IoT itself is a possibility of having vulnerabilities, because IoT devices are not smart. They are controlled by very simple controllers. They have very simple functions, but they might actually be there as a container of potentially vulnerable data. So now when you think about IoT device, you need to worry about how safe is your router, how safe is your network protection. So I definitely urge you guys to read about on the Hungarian studies if there are any data breach studies or case studies that talk about the examples of what happens storing data on a regular USB drive, storing data on a DVD, what happens as a consequence. And we had a study where 81% of the participants used more than one USB drive for job purposes. That's good for us because we make business. 34% reported that one or more drives had disappeared in their company. Now that's 34% who reported. There is a potential fact that there are other users that have not reported that kind of a loss. So this number could actually be bigger. So think about where you're working right now yourself. If you are a consultant or if you are part of an IT department in your organization or anywhere else, think about how your own organization is using USB drives. What type of USB drives are you using? And have you ever had a situation where you lost that USB drive? Risk reduction by introducing organizational, for example, policies as well as technical measures. So this is where you start thinking smart about security on a simple device like a USB drive. We've been doing encrypted drives, hardware encrypted drives since 2007, 2006. So we've been there over 10 years on these drives. So we're pretty good at this topic. We're very, very good at answering customers' demands. And some of the slides will talk about the flexibility we have with customers in terms of tailoring the drives. So it is an initial higher cost on using an encrypted drive for transferring your data from point A to point B. But again, the cost of losing that data is immeasurably much higher. Okay, so we had a survey here in Hungary, and some of the key points that we got from the survey was that more than 90% of the USB drive used by the Hungarian participants do not use hardware-based encryption. We want to change that number to smaller and smaller as GDPR law comes in effect next year in May. More than half of the employees mix personal and private data on their USB drives. So that means you have a mixture of company data, personal data. Even the personal data could be your passwords to bank accounts. It could be your family photos. It could be material that you don't want anybody else to have access to. So more than half of the employees in this survey, they do this. So there's a major data loss and data breach in there. Employees indicated that 34% of the company's USB drives have gone missing. This is the study here locally, pretty high, so 1/3. And almost a fifth of the participants had no plans to do more to secure their data, despite the changes in GDPR being under a year away. We're about 65% to the deadline of the GDPR, so time is running out. So it's very important to start looking at what mechanisms do you have in place, and if you're using USB drives, what type of USB drives are you using, and should you upgrade to using encrypted drives? Okay, how to prevent data breaches and become GDPR compliant. This is in respect to using or storing data on USB drives alone. This is a huge subject where you need to worry about your network security. You need to worry about your hard drive security on your laptops, on your desktops, on your servers. You have to worry about your email security. You need to also worry about document security, which is if you have archives and archives of paper over the years, is it safely stored? Is it secure in its archive? Or should you start worrying about document scanning and bringing the documents into digital format to be stored possibly on an encrypted storage system, right? So we only talk about here about USB drives, but the topic is huge. So you want to understand the consequences, the philosophy of GDPR. You want to assess your own environment to see, are you sufficiently protected? Can you do something more in terms of securing your data? You're using USB drives, you're using DVD burners on your PCs. Do you really need all those? And is there too much of a data risk of having them used on a day-to-day operation? Should you stop having optical drives in PCs? Should you have endpoint policies that say only certain type of devices are allowed? And we can answer those kind of challenges easily in Kingston. You want to define what the good plan is. You want to define sort of a list of things to do, list of things to achieve, and you really have only about less than a year to go to the 25th of May. You want to think about technology where we are, so we are very strong on technology side for encrypted USB drives. And then at the end of the day, once you've implemented the encrypted drives, you want to educate your employees, your coworkers, your teams to be able to use them sufficiently and use them smartly. Even if you have a secure drive, you might not make the right choices when you're taking these drives into your day-to-day operation in the organization. Okay, so what are the policy options? I'm really simplifying here the policy options for data on the move. So that's data that's going from on a USB drive from point A to point B. What are the advantages? So why should you go for encrypted drives? So the left side towards the lockdown of USB ports is the classic example of gluing your USB ports and not allowing a single kind of USB device to be used in the environment. But at the same time, what you're actually achieving is you're achieving that the employees cannot charge their devices, they can't use the USB ports for cell phone data transfers or typically safe usage in their organization. So you're really locking down the freedom and the flexibility of the employees. And there's also the cost and training that you need to choose an alternative way of transferring your data. One of the more popular ways these days for storing or transferring data is cloud. And if you think about what cloud is doing, is you're storing on somebody else's server your data that might actually be very, very sensitive and very private, but you think maybe Google Drive is sufficiently strong on security, maybe Dropbox is sufficiently strong, but are you sure? Are you okay with the fact that your data might be stored in a cloud server that's actually sitting somewhere else than here? So if you choose encrypted drives in your policy, in your day-to-day data transfer policy, you give flexibility to users because our drives are very simple to use. Today and tomorrow you can come to our booth and you can see demonstrations of our drives if you want to see how easy they are to use. You have increased data security because everything we do on our encrypted drives are hardware encrypted. It's always on. You can't get rid of it. Our drives are endpoint and device manageable, which means if you're using Sophos, ESET, McAfee, Symantec, any of the popular strong endpoint protection software applications or software in the market, our drives can be used along with those to do endpoint policy management. So in other words, you can create a policy that says the blue drive on the right side of the screen is allowed, but everything else, including our standard Kingston USB drives and the competitor drives, would be blocked. That's a very smart choice for using encrypted drives in your organization. Okay, so going into the smart endpoint policy, so because we've been doing encrypted drives for so long, 10 years, around 10 years, we've heard so many customer cases on how they want to use our drives. And in many cases, they want to complement their existing security environment with our encrypted drives. So it is as easy as saying, if you have antivirus software on your PC at home or work, you must have firewall software as well. It is a complementary solution that makes sense to increase the security of your desktop system or your client systems. So you want to have antivirus, anti-malware cover on desktops and mobile devices. We can offer antivirus and anti-malware cover on the USB drives. So if you're very strong on preventing viruses on your client PCs, we also have a solution that runs on the USB drive itself. You can come to our booth and we can give you a demonstration of a ESET Clevex AV running on a hardware encrypted USB drive. So that's an end-to-end protection. So you have AV running on a USB drive, you have AV running on your desktop. That's a perfect solution. You're not leaving any holes in the process of moving data from one place to another or from one medium to another. You want to also be able to enforce read-only states, which means many of our customers over the years have asked for, how do I prevent anybody altering the content on these drives? And we have read-only switches on our drives, which means if you bring the USB drive, the encrypted drive, to an untrusted PC, it could be a library, it could be a friend's computer, your boss's computer, and you know that your boss didn't install the latest AV and so forth, you can use read-only state to prevent anything from altering the content. And also, we're able to answer the question about location-based restrictions. We have customers asking, can we have these drives work only within our organization, within our IP range of products or IP range of PCs, which is, let's say, your office has 100 PCs, you want to only have these drives work there? And the answer is yes. We have many, many flexible solutions that can pretty much answer any kind of requirements that the customer have. And towards the end of my presentation, we also have customization where we can tailor all of our drives to your needs. So you can always talk to us about the flexibility we have with the products, as well as customization that's been asked by many, many customers over the years from our drives. Okay, so moving on. The Kingston encrypted drives, we can kind of categorize them in two different families. We have the data traveler encrypted drives, and we have the iron key encrypted drives. For those in the audience who don't know what iron key is, that's a US government-funded encrypted USB or encryption company back in the day that was formed. It was one of our biggest competitors, especially in the US, obviously. And we decided the time was right. Last year in March, we acquired iron key encrypted USB drives. So we have even more encrypted drives in our portfolio. So we have a very strong portfolio, very strong product range to answer pretty much any requirements. Small capacities, fast drives, management drives, standalone drives, keypad drives like the one you see here, and so on. So a lot of options, and I'm going to go over the products very quickly here. I'm not going to go over every spec, but it's going to be a lot of slides coming up. So again, a very broad range of our drives listed here. So we have the DT2000, the keypad drive here. You can come see this at our booth as well for a demo. Then we have the DTVP30, which is the most popular hardware encrypted drive. And the next one is the same drive with the built-in AV. And when I speak to customers, I always want to make sure that they get the right part number. If you want the AV, you don't want to order the DTVP30. If you don't want the AV, you don't want to order DTVP30 AV, if you see what I mean. You want to be careful with the part numbers. The next drives are the management-capable drives. This is a huge topic that I could speak for hours, but these drives are capable of being managed remotely by Data Locker Safe Console, and it's able to track what's going on those drives. You can send remote commands to the drives, and one of the strongest features that these drives have is that if the drive is lost or stolen, you can send a command to the drive to disable it. That's a very, very strong feature to say, you're able to lock the drive from being reused ever again if it's been lost or stolen. And there's the iron key range. So we have the S300, the S1000 drives, and we have more details coming up on those drives. So why do you need encrypted drives? Again, it helps on GDPR compliancy. It helps on meeting your targets for data security on the move. The drives are very simple to use. We support most popular operating systems, as you will be seeing soon. And they are very quick and efficient for deployment. Very, very easy to use. These are not complicated products at all. And again, like I said, we can tailor them to the customer requirements. We can add AV software, and we can have management capabilities on the drives as well if need be. And we can change the password complexities and properties if need be as well. Very flexible. Okay, So very quickly, the iron key lineup, so D300 and S1000, you'll see the specs there. So we have FIPS 140-2 level 3 on both of those drives. The S1000 is the oldest of our iron key drives, but it's also the most fastest in terms of performance. So if you're looking for a fast drive, the S1000 is probably the drive that you're looking for. So side by side, if you look at the drives, so the S1000s come in basic and enterprise models. The basic one is a standalone drive. The enterprise model is the one that requires, there's no picture here, but it requires, actually there is, sorry. On the right-hand side is the iron key EMS. That's the management console that the S1000 enterprise can be attached to. The D300 is our latest iron key drive. It's coming as a standard drive, a standalone again, as well as managed version, which is using the same EMS console as the S1000. So you have a choice between two different drives if you're interested in iron key product line drives. One that's fast and the other one that is more affordable but still equally strong on security. So going over the specs, I'm going to go pretty quickly because I don't want to read through everything. There's a lot of text in there. But the D300 again is the latest iron key drive we have. You want to order the D300M, which you see on the bottom, if you're looking for iron key EMS support. The drives go up to, it's actually, it should be 128 gig, yeah, it's 128 gigabyte capacity if you need that much capacity. We have Windows, Mac, and Linux support on those drives. Very, very easy to use. You can come to our booth and, like I said before, we can give you product demos as well if you want to see how easy they are to use. The S1000 is the fastest one of these two drives. It goes up to 400 megabytes per second read and 300 megabytes per second write. It has the same Windows, Mac, and Linux support as the previous drive. And the other strong point on this product is actually able to self-destruct. So for those who are in the realm of storage security, you might have heard of self-destructing USB drives. And yes, the S1000 is still capable of doing that. Essentially, if you run out of the password, maximum number of password attempts on the drive, you can actually make sure that the drive terminates and cannot be used at all. In essence, it becomes a paperweight. But some customers need that kind of a feature. Going into the encrypted data travelers, this is the lineup that we have right now. So we have the Data Traveler Locker Bus Plus G3 on the left side. It's going from the lower cost, affordable, to the most secure to the right side. The strong point on the Locker Bus G3 is the USB to cloud, which also contains an embedded AV. So the USB to cloud, I have more slides on this drive later, so I'll cover that a bit more in depth. But the USB to cloud is able to synchronize to your chosen cloud provider, if that's something that you're comfortable with. DT2000, which we've been getting a lot of questions today, is our OS-independent physical keypad USB drive. So if you're looking for something that can work on any platform that has a USB mass storage support, this would be your drive. It's really easy to use because you use the keypad for your access. You plug into your PC and it acts like a regular USB drive, except that it's always been hardware. The content is always encrypted with the hardware encryption engine. And there's the DTVP30, so Data Traveler Vault Privacy 3.0. This is a FIPS 197 drive, just like the DT2000, which means it's AES 256-bit. Everything is the same. We're using XTS block cipher mode on all of those drives, which is right now the latest and the most sophisticated AES encryption mode on those drives. And on the, like you saw before, the Data Traveler Vault Privacy 3.0 has an antivirus queue as well as Safe Console as well. But a little bit more about that later. And the last one on the list is the DT4000 G2DM, or the Data Traveler 4000 G2DM. We have long names for our products. That is the one that supports Safe Console, and you can use this drive with or without Safe Console. So if you guys are interested in drives that can be managed, but you can also drop the management from the drive if you don't like it or you don't need it, you can use a flexible DT4000 G2DM for those projects. And management means you're able to, again, control the drives remotely. You can send commands to the drive. You can change the policy on those drives. You can tailor individual drives in your organization to your liking. That's very powerful for that particular family of products. Okay, so a couple of more words about the DT Locker Bus G3. I have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to have to run through. So again, popular cloud services are provided in terms of the synchronization, so you can synchronize the data on the drive to those specific cloud providers that we offer. If you have a project where you would like this drive with your own cloud provider, talk to us, because we've had customers in the past that we've customized the drive to only work with their chosen cloud service. right? And also, once you enable the USB to cloud, you can have the antivirus running on the drive, and it's a 5-year license. So you have 5 years of active support, both from Kingston and ESET, as well as the virus definition files that are loaded to these drives through the network. Okay, so DT2000, a very popular drive today. So that's the OS-independent drive again, with a physical keypad. It can be, again, like I said, it can be used in a variety of hosts. So if you have an environment where you have servers, Mac systems, Windows systems, you might have thin clients, etc., car stereos, you have TVs that have USB ports. This is a really good drive to bring your content to. And I had a discussion with Canon in Finland last year where we talked about their network document scanners having a USB port, and this would be a suitable drive to be used there. So in other words, you scan your company documents with the document scanner and you store them to the encrypted drive directly from the scanner. You're cutting off so much of the middle risk area that is much more safer this way to have it directly on an encrypted drive from the scanner itself. So that could be an interesting proposition, and this has a lot to do with GDPR. Canon is also there to talk about GDPR in relation to their document scanners. DT Vault Privacy 3.0, and again, I think I've said several times what this drive is, so I'll just cover the basics. So it has a read-only mode, as you saw before. FIPS 197, it's a USB 3.0 drive with Windows, Mac, and Linux support. We can customize and co-logo these drives, and you have 3 different SKUs to consider. The standard one, DTVP30, the one that comes with the 5-year licensed AV, which is the DTVP30 AV, as well as the last one is the management-ready version, the DTVP30DM. So you have several options that you can choose from us when you're looking at this particular product line. Capacities go up to 64, but many of our customers actually go with smaller capacities like 4 and 8 gigs because the risk of losing a lot of data is lower when you have a smaller capacity drive versus having a 64 or 128. That's going to store a lot more data to lose if you lose the drive. So the ESET drive, again, 5-year license. It only scans the drive itself. So if you have desktop AV already, it's not going to interfere or it's not going to change the way your desktop AV works. It only scans the drive itself, which makes it very simple to use, very simple to prevent viruses coming into your organization or to your home or to your friend's computer or client computer. Upon finding a virus, it deletes the file. It's absolutely simple to use. Again, 5-year license to get the definitions and to be able to use it for long term. 4000 G2DM, the FIPS 140-2 level 3 drive. It's the one that has a Safe Console support to it, so you can manage it using Data Locker Safe Console. Come talk to us at our booth on the 2nd floor about if you're interested in Safe Console, because it is a very huge topic, and it has a lot of powerful features that are very difficult to cover in a half-an-hour presentation. But definitely come to us, and we're happy to explain what Safe Console can do for you on these drives. And the nice thing about these drives is they are flexible, so you could use this drive without Safe Console for a couple of months. Then you decide you like what Safe Console can offer. You buy the license for the Safe Console from Data Locker, and you can activate these drives in your own Safe Console environment to have them manageable. So it's a very flexible environment. And a little bit about the data travel management ready drives. So the 2 in the picture, so the Data Traveler Vault Privacy 3.0 managed ready drive or managed solutions drive. That's the one that's not with the FIPS 140, that's the FIPS 197. And if your organization requires FIPS 140-2 level 3, you can choose the black drive, the DT4000 G2DM. There are no significant differences between these 2 drives. They both work with the same Safe Console software. So you could choose to use both drives in the same environment, and they will work perfectly fine together. And if you're interested in remote password reset, password policies, device auditing, device state management, or geolocation, geofencing, you can achieve all of those with Safe Console, and there are a lot more. Safe Console is able to give you AV solution as well. There's a lot of flexibility and customization that you can do to individual drives, and the device audit, I think, is one of the most popular ones because you get to see what's being copied to the drive. You can see what your employees, that perhaps you have somebody who you suspect is leaking company data, you can see what's been transferred to those drives at what computer at what particular time. Very interesting platform. And I think the remote password reset is another one that's very strong and popular with our customers Because many times when we enforce complex passwords on our drives, and complex password is uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, everybody knows how difficult it is to remember a complex password. The remote password reset allows the admin of the Safe Console to reset the password on the drive without data loss. It's a very, very good feature on those drives. Okay, and the other one that we have is the Enterprise Central Managed from IronKey. It is very, very similar to Safe Console. You can come talk to us about EMS. The main difference between EMS, the Enterprise Central Management, and Safe Console is EMS is historically US-based. They have a on-premises version as well as a cloud version, but the cloud version is still running in US. So if your data or your device management policy is running in US is an issue, you could probably choose Safe Console. Safe Console also has on-premises version as well as cloud versions, and the cloud locations are across Europe. Okay, I think this is my last slide. So, second to the last one, sorry. So I mentioned customization several times, that we're very flexible. Over the 10 years or so, we've been very forthcoming with our customers, very open to their suggestions, what makes sense, what can we do. We have a customization program that you can talk to us. So if you've been getting interested in our drives based on my presentation and based on talking to us here today and tomorrow, if there are any features you feel like we should change it for you, we can definitely do that through customization. There's a minimum order quantity of 50 right now. We can customize giving it logos, we can give it a different profile, we can change the way the serial numbers are shown on the drive, so we can actually give you asset management tools, so we can actually give you an Excel sheet that contains the serial numbers of all the drives. We can give you a custom PID, different capacities, so we can lower the capacities as well. We can load your content to the drive if necessary, and there's also a dual password function as well. So I hope I didn't go too fast, and I hope it was rewarding for you guys, and you saw the link between GDPR and our encrypted drives. That GDPR loading is my kind of a funny comment that it is at 65% roughly right now, so time is running out. There's my contact details. My name is Pasi. We have Norbert Casal here as well, the business development manager for the region. Please come to our booth, talk to us about our products, and hopefully it's been a good half an hour for you guys. Thank you.